Light Talk. Lumen Brothers. Light Talk. Light Talk. Light Talk. Lumen Brothers. Light Talk.
Well, good morning once again, and this is Stan from beautiful downtown Gainesville, Florida, and you are listening to Light Talk.
Hi, this is Steve in Dallas, Texas, and today we're going to talk about everything from stinking Fresnels to harsh film lighting on Light Talk.
And this is David in Long Beach, California, and if you don't already know, you are listening to Light Talk, and we are the Lumen Brothers. The smooth lumens.
Luminaries.
So anyway, we are pre-recording this a few days earlier because right now, as you're listening to this, Stan and Steve are freezing their bums off in Chicago, Illinois, because they're at the URTA auditions. And I'm sure it's going great for you guys, right?
I don't know. It hasn't happened yet.
It hasn't happened yet. But at least you're at the bar, so you're seeing a lot of old friends, and I'm projecting all this goodwill that's going to happen this weekend.
I want to say something about URTA. Two things happened to me that are unrelated to recruitment. One, I'm now in the URTA accreditation pool, which means I might get sent to some school in Alaska to tell them how they're doing. And I also was asked to be, this year, they're giving an award to like the mentor of the year in all the different categories for undergrads. So like costume, scenery, lighting, and so on. And they're going to reward those teachers who do great jobs from the presentations of their students. So I'm on the panel that will help pick the lighting mentor of the year. And I guess it can't be me because I'm on the panel.
Well, I'm nominating you, Stan, because because anyone who could produce Martha Carter deserves to be Mentor of the Year.
Oh, that's sweet. Well, I wasn't the only one.
Martha is fantastic.
She is. She went to grad school too, with up at Irvine. But we talked her into going back to grad school. And I have a wonderful student at URTA this year, so I can't get the award because I'm obviously on the panel that makes judgments. So that counts me out.
Right. Well, as everyone knows, I'm not going to be there because we're no longer recruiting graduate students.
But we're going to miss you.
You know something? This is what I'm going to miss more than anything else, and that is because I don't really miss the artists. I mean, I love talking to the students and all that, but it's kind of crazy, and that I won't miss. But what I will miss is seeing all my friends and all my colleagues there and talking to the students in a more informal type of situation. But yeah, I'll miss you guys. So just have a drink for me and don't use the elevator. Remember from last week.
Right. And we're going to toast you.
Okay, toast me.
Roast you, and we're going to roast you too.
I'm going to be toast, to tell you the truth. So anyway, let's start with our listener questions. And Steve has the first question.
I have Reggie from Kansas. And Reggie says, my school is buying 20 new Fresnels. Would you suggest the ETC Parnel or the Altman 6-inch Fresnel? Reggie, you don't want either one of those things. So if you're at ETC, I love you guys, but turn the radio off right now. A Parnel? No.
POC. It's a POC. Do you know what that stands for?
I know what a POS stands for.
Okay. Here's the deal. The Parnel was an idea not ready for its time.
No.
And if you buy a Parnel, the MSRP on it is $190. If you go to Gear Source, they're about $40. So maybe, but I don't think I would. And the Altman 6-inch Fresnel, I mean, nice light, but it's yesterday's light.
Oh man!
And it's $150. So if you're gonna spend $190 to $150, I'm going to suggest a third light. And I know to answer your question, Parnell or Altman, get the Altman. But if you're open to a suggestion, I would take a look at Philips, and I would look at the Acclaim. The Acclaim is a 4.5-inch Fresnel, and it's about 40% brighter than either the Parnell or the Altman 6-inch Fresnel. It doesn't quite have the spread of the Altman Fresnel. An Acclaim is a 6-degree to 60-degree spread, and that Altman is about a 70-degree spread. But the Acclaim is the same price as the Parnell. It's $190. And then if you really wanted to step it up a little bit, I would look. There's at least a dozen from varying manufacturers, LED Fresnels.
Yeah.
And I would look at those. If I were going to stick with the Philips world, I'd probably look at the Rama. That's a 7-inch Fresnel. It might be too big for you. But there's a lot of good LED fixtures out there, and I would look a different way than going backwards into quartz. What do you guys think?
I totally
with you.
agree. I totally agree with you, Steve. You know, I use the Parnells, and they are. I used the last time I used the Parnell was a couple years ago. I was doing a musical in Salt Lake City. It was Man of La Mancha, and there was this one scene where I had a pipe go up with some lights on it, strictly eye candy, and that's what I used them for because they were just lit at like 30%, and they went up. That was it. But I agree with Steve. You need a third option, and what I recommend instead of buying another Fresnel is buy a Lico. And put a piece of frost in it if you want it soft, because you'll get pretty much the same light and you'll get control. So and if you wanted a wide flood, get a 50-degree. If you want it narrow, get a 19-degree. I don't know, but when I came into the school, they were building a new theater here, and I looked at the lighting specifications, and the previous professor specified like 100 Fresnels for this space, and that's the first thing I changed. And I changed them. Instead of 100 Fresnels, I bought like 60 Licos. And that's all you need, because now I'm gonna change something. If you were in Europe, I would say get PCs, because they are fantastic lights. They give you a great soft edge. You can barn door them if you wanted. It gives you a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful blending wash light. But again, we're not, and I assume that since you're in Kansas, you'd have access more to Licos. What do you think, Stan?
I'm with Steve on there's a whole range of LED Fresnels if he really wants a Fresnel. We've sort of enjoyed these, what are they called now? I think we have some Chevet Colorados. They're sort of wash lights, but they have a remote, and they're LED and they're multiple color and they're variable zoom. So you can do that remotely. They may not be as bright as he wants, or they may be more expensive than what he wants to spend. But Steve turned me on to these.
Are you talking about? Are you talking about the punch lights?
Yes,
the 220s.
Yeah,
I've got a bunch of those going into a symphonic hall.
I've got 9 of them going, 12 going into this renovation I'm doing, and they're going to light the ceiling. The whole ceiling is going to be an indirect light source, and I had them sent out to me to test them. Really love them. Really great product. So I think there's a whole range of wash lights, and I agree with Steve. You've got to look beyond those two.
You might also consider, he's got a magic number here of 20. I'm speculating maybe a 2-color backwash. Mm-hmm. Maybe you don't need 20. Maybe you can spend a little bit more money and get 12 something betters than 20 something from yesterday.
I agree.
Yep, I agree.
Okay, right. we covered that question for Reggie, didn't
absolutely. We? Reggie, go for it, Reggie. But forget about Fresnels. Take that word out of your lexicon. Done. Drew in Montana writes, I am trying to light my first project for film class. I am in a 10x10 room, and everything I do seems harsh and flat. My lights are on rolling stands. I don't have a grid. Any suggestions? Absolutely. First thing I suggest you do is go to your library and rent or check out Fritz Lang's Metropolis and watch it. Because what he does, and this is a film from the early part of the last century, and it really shows. It's black and white, exactly, but it's beautifully lit. Also, I would suggest you look at Citizen Kane. You look at almost anything Kubrick has done. Some great films that do not use a lot of front light. I would take those stands and I would create side light, I create backlight, single source with a little bit of fill in the front, and there you go. It's no longer flat and no longer harsh. Again, just look at what you see and what you like your film to look like. Look at everything through the camera lens, obviously, and just try the different angles, and I think that you'll be fine.
The other thing, David, that you brought up was the front fill light. Mm-hmm. When I see this, he says harsh and flat. Mm-hmm. You might consider bouncing one of those lights off a wall or a piece of cardboard.
Right.
So took the words right out of my mouth. Yep.
Yeah, you've got 10 by 10, so you don't have a lot of room in there.
Right. I was going to say, so he needs to bounce. And just to take a riff off the word grid, there's a substance called grid cloth, which they use in film a lot to really make the light heavily diffuse. So get some grid cloth, maybe get some bead boards where we'll put some, if you have no money, put some Mylar on a piece of cardboard, like Steve said, and bounce the light. That's the answer. I'd soften it up. I got one from Mary in Ohio, and she says, I've just graduated from school. Hey, congratulations. And I'm discovering all the things I don't know. That's right, because when you graduate is when the learning actually begins. What is the key to planning a successful budget for a small regional theater? Well, that's a tough one because I don't really have too much context from you, but I made a list. So the first thing you might do, well, before you even start doing this stuff, you might find out if this theater has been in existence, how they've done it before. So first do some research, find out what they have and how they've used it, what the problems have been, get your head around the existing conditions, so to speak. And then I would go ahead and I create budget lines for all the things that you imagine money's going to be spent on. Break that down. It's a chart of accounts. Make sure you have a contingency fund. So know what your overall budget is and take a percentage. Could be anywhere from 5% up to 20% that you're just going to hold in reserve for things you can't predict. In fact, government agencies require that for certain situations. There has to be reserve monies. Look to the historical expenditures. See what's been going on before. You could relatively inexpensively buy QuickBooks. It's now online, and it will help you set up all of your accounts and for debits and credits and tracking and organizing. QuickBooks is great. You don't have to necessarily hire an accountant anymore. My accountant logs into my QuickBooks accounts, and she sees every penny we're spending and helps us save on taxes at the same time. So learn some basic accounting, or if you don't want to go that deep, you can just use Excel. Learn how to use the formulas in Excel, create budget lines, and track your expenses. I hope that's what she's getting at. What do you guys think?
Well, I would say it's if you haven't worked there before, get with a production manager and ask them what is your budget line and what they expect you to pay for out of that budget line. If you don't know how to budget gel, because you probably don't do that in college. If you don't know how to budget that, budget a cut for every light you're using. You're not going to exceed that. You'll probably come in under that, so you'll know what your gel cost is going to be. If you know you want a backwash of a dozen gobos, you don't need to know what the gobo is right now. You just need to know you need a dozen, so you can budget that. There's a lot of things that you can ask the production manager about as you move into this show. Probably it's not going to be that difficult for you. If it's a small regional theater, you're probably not going to be budgeting labor. You're probably not going to be budgeting running crew. But as Stan says, it's probably not their first rodeo, and they can give you hard numbers about what a similar show has cost.
You, all of you out there in Light Talk listening land, are listening to Light Talk with Steve, Stan, and David, the Lumen Brothers. And this week, Light Talk is sponsored by
Wilmette Corporation's Frosted. Are those hard-edged beams of light making your design look like the Ice Capades? Or worse, a night at the circus? Do you have to resort to inserting gobos in the vain attempt to make the edge less defined? And do you throw up your hands in the air and in the act of ultimate desperation, you just gaffer tape a piece of 119 over the lens of a fixture? Why are moving light manufacturers developing new spot fixtures without decent diffusers? You know what I mean. All those defined circles of light on the stage floor that refuse to blend in with the overlapping light. Why can't these engineers get this right? Well, the next time you have to use a fixture that will not soften, try Wilmette Corporation's new Frosted diffusing spray. That's right. One spray of frosted on the lens of that light will allow you to create a soft beam of light from Hamburg frost to tough spun. And don't worry about permanently ruining the lens. Frosted is easily removed with a rag and mineral spirits. So don't suffer anymore from those hard edges, making you look like a lighting rookie. Use Frosted on your next show. Well, it's obvious that Wammet Corporation has been listening to us because we were talking about this 2 weeks ago.
I think you have stock in them.
Yes, I do have stock in Wammet. I have stock in Wammet and Tesla. Those are the only two companies. And also the Cheeky Rigger of Sheffield. Those are the three stocks that I own.
No, and what about no more 10 out of 12s?
Well, those are public service announcements. Those
they're
are
up and
not.
coming. Oh, they're not
commercial. They're not commercial.
I see.
So, yeah.
Don't you remember back in the day when Varilites solved the diffusion problem?
Yes, we talked about it 2 weeks ago. Didn't we? About the VL1000?
Oh, no, they solved it way before the 1000.
Oh, tell me.
So one day, they're having a problem figuring out this diffusion thing. And Rusty walks in, and he goes, "What is that?" And they had put a gel holder on the front of the light to hold diffusion. And he went,
That's
he
right.
went,
You
no.
told this
He
story.
says,
Yes.
that's
right.
coming off right now. Give me a crowbar.
So instead, we use gaffer's tape.
Well, the VL1000 has a frame holder on
It does. And you know why it had a frame holder on front?
And I think it has two slots, does it not? Or one?
Do you know why it has a frame holder? What that frame holder was for?
Because you asked for it.
No. Actually, it's really smart. Verilite was really smart about this.
Correction.
It's for color correction. Exactly.
Yeah, I knew that.
Because it was because you couldn't.
It was an arc.
Yeah, well, no, it wasn't an arc. It was an incandescent. They had an arc version of it, but the light was primarily incandescent.
I have the arc version.
I used to use arc versions for operas in large venues, but it started out as an incandescent lamp, and they wanted to be able to do like a nice 201 or 202, put it in there because the cyan flag was not really good to do that with.
To do it, right? Yeah, I did know that. And now, back to Light Talk.
So that sound that you don't hear. I mean, normally we would have ducks coming into our show. And unfortunately, we don't know what happened to the ducks, although I have a pretty good idea what happened to them. Stan?
I did it.
You ate all those damn ducks?
Delicious. They were delicious. They were fantastic. The skin, the fat, the meat.
Oh, God. Here we go
to
again.
Die for.
Here we go again. I want to say that we've gotten several complaints from that episode where you were talking about the boiling water seeping into the carcass. And I think that was the quote, boiling water seeping into the carcass.
Yes, those were my words.
Yeah, okay. People are scared, Stan. They're scared.
Oh, boy. We're living in such snowflakes. Oh, my.
Yes. So anyway, we have no ducks. Therefore, we have no Let's Talk About segment. So we now have to go out and find some new ducks for next week.
Maybe turkeys. I like turkey for a change.
No. Ducks have a very special meaning. They are the official.
I know. They taste great.
They're the official Light Talk with the Lumen Brothers mascot.
Did we give them T-shirts?
No.
We should get T-shirts for the ducks.
All right.
Then I wouldn't eat them.
All right. This is going to be a very short show today, guys, for a good reason. Anyway, so our last question of the day is Femi, F-E-M-I, and I think that is the correct way of pronouncing it. Femi in the United Arab Emirates writes, "How do you explain what you do? People, my parents especially, seem to have misconceptions about my future." All right. Well, I know I'm speaking for Stan and Steve, but I'm sure they will agree that we get this question from our students all the time. How do you explain to your parents that you're an artist and that you are studying to be an artist and you're studying for this profession without them totally freaking out because you're not the doctor or lawyer that they were hoping you would turn into? So I actually broke this down because, I went through this too. My parents were very supportive of me, but they were always wondering why I was a musician and why I liked playing in rock bands. My dad understood it because I met a lot of girls. So that he understood. But he was concerned about my future because, really, how many musicians make it big? probably the same percentage that actors make it big and be able to actually afford to live. So your parents care about you. This is why they are asking you this question. They are naturally concerned about your future and about your ability to survive and raise a family and at least have the same type of life as they were able to give you. So I think once you understand that, I think it's a lot easier. So I have a few tips. The first thing you can explain to them is that you are an artist working and studying in a very broad technical field. Unlike a fine artist, there's a lot that a lighting designer can do. Just tell them that there are many industries you could work in: theater, opera, television, architecture, film, lighting manufacturers. You could be a manufacturer rep. You could be an inventor. You could be a programmer. There are so many things that you can do. You could even work on a crew if you had to work on a crew and make a very good living. You could learn one or two software platforms, take some training, and you work in an architectural firm. We talked about this a lot in the show. A lot of my students, I know a lot of Stan's students do this as well. There are a lot of things that you can do to make a living, to earn a living, and still create your art. So that will immediately put them at ease. Explain to them that every television show and movie that they watch, every restaurant and building that they enter, and every street they travel on, usually a lighting designer had something to do with that. And, if all else fails, you can always teach. Stan, Steve, and me. So the bottom line is that you have a much better chance of employment than actors or fine artists. What do you guys think?
I think he has to say one fundamental thing to his parents. And I think everything you said, David, is absolutely correct and accurate, and I agree with. But he has to say, this makes me happy.
Yeah,
you're right. And I think that I'm thinking back to my mom, who I really had a lot of respect for and was a very strong woman. She would always say, do what makes you happy. Because if you're happy, you're probably going to do well at it. And then beyond that, the other piece of it is that no matter what you learn, if you become really good at it and really knowledgeable about it, it exists in the world. Somebody, somewhere is going to pay you for that. Right? And I would say that I don't get this question that much anymore, but I think 20 years ago, when parents would talk to me or their students wanted to study stage design or whatever, I would say, if you could, there were like 50 regional theaters in the country, and there was Broadway and there was television, and there wasn't that, the market was smaller. And we would say, look, if you can be happy doing something else, then do it. If this is the only thing that gives you fulfillment, then okay, then study it. I don't say that anymore. We have a huge industry. There's so, like David said, there's so many places to work. So if you want to do this, I think, and they're concerned with your happiness, I think they should rest assured that you might not become, super wealthy, but you'll be happy and you'll probably have enough to live on and be safe and have a comfortable retirement. There's no problem with that anymore.
I agree. What do you think, Steve?
Well, I think, Femi, you should have them listen to this podcast and tell them you're going to become the Middle East correspondent for Light Talk.
Yeah, that's what we need, a Middle East correspondent.
That would be the office in Dubai? No, he's in UAE. What's the main city there, Steve?
I have no idea. But the other thing, Femi, is you clearly want to marry well. And I would say David really nailed it, but I think there is something else you should do. So take all of David's advice. And I think you should take walks with your parents. And I think you should walk through the shopping mall.
Yep.
And say, I could do that. I could light this space. A lighting designer did that.
Sure.
David's right. You
right.
sit down and you watch the evening television together, the news show. This is what a lighting designer does. So I think part of this is also educating them to what you can actually do. Because if they're not in the theater or entertainment industry, it's a real abstract. They know what an accountant does. I mean, they know what a car salesman does. They know what a teacher does. But when you say, I'm going to be a designer, all of a sudden that's kind of a gray area they're not so familiar with. But as you go to restaurants, as you walk around with them, as you have conversations with them, two things are going to happen. They're going to start to see and understand what you're talking about, and that's going to inspire conversation from them to ask you questions. Could you do this? Could you do that? Could you work in whatever part of the world? Could you go to Germany and work? Could you go to the States and work? Could you work in Asia? And all of a sudden, they're going to get very, very comfortable with this.
And whatever you do not invite them to my house, because if you walk into my house, the first thing they're going to say is, obviously, a lighting designer does not live here.
That's what I thought when I was
It's
there.
really pathetic.
I was sort of shocked.
Did you know what the...
Spend some, you know what? You spent all this money on this Tesla. Spend a little money.
I have no
on some-
money left. I have no money left.
We just, so you know what? We had to buy Pam was, okay, I can tell a quick story. So we have these 2 reclining chairs in the living room and a table between them, and we read there a lot. And we don't have a good light. Pam has been asking me for years, can we get a good lighting designer? So 2 nights ago, we sat down in front of the computer and we shopped. And I'll recommend this company. We love Modern Forms. Modern Forms is a division of WAC Lighting. Beautiful, simple, elegant, modern lights. And we bought this beautiful lamp for $200. $200, David. Okay, and it'll be here on, I think, next week. Maybe I'll post
I can't
a picture.
afford it.
And we'll have beautiful. You can afford a $200 light. Put some lights in your house.
Okay, it's so bad. It's gotten so bad that when High-End Systems sent me my Christmas present, it's now the highlight of the lighting in my house. It's a lava lamp. It's a lava lamp. You guys didn't get.
Well, that's
you guys
cool.
didn't get a gift from High-End?
Not a lava lamp.
What'd you get?
I got like a bunch of fixtures, and I got.
What?
Oh, you know what the best gift I
You
got?
got
I got
fixtures?
no. Wait. Even better. When I was in Austin reviewing those fixtures, Bobby took me out for food to a fantastic Texas barbecue place. And because my wife is a Texan, we bought a couple of pounds of that stuff, and I brought it back to Florida. And let me tell you, that scored a lot of brownie points.
Wow.
And I got a T-shirt from that joint, too. They were very generous.
And I got a lava lamp. Now I'm really depressed.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah. And it does help the lighting in my house, I guess. Well, anyway.
David, get with the program.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to get with is that Hammond organ solo in the background that tells us that once again you've spent another morning listening to Light Talk with the Lumen Brothers. And be sure to follow us on Facebook and subscribe to our podcast on iTunes. That way you will not miss a nanosecond of Light Talk fun.
No guarantee is offered regarding the accuracy of any statements or opinions made on this podcast.
And remember, if you choose to litigate these Lumen Brothers, our solid-state law firm of Cobb, Driver, and Array will defend us until our retirement funds are depleted.
And by the way, I heard, it just came off the wire, that we're adding a new person. Because he's available.
Oh.
He's finally available. His name is Rudolph Giuliani from New York.
Light Talk is
that out
written
for
and
sure.
produced by the Lumen Brothers, coming to you from Long Beach, Gainesville, and deep in the heart of Texas.
And be sure to tune in next week for our interview with lighting and projections designer Driscoll Otto.
All of that. And a new sponsor, Light Talk, broadcasting questionable Lumen knowledge and humor around the world.
All right, guys, come back thawed out. We'll see you all next Saturday morning. Bye-bye from Light Talk.
Bye-bye.
Light Talk.